So Dame getting traded to the Bucks caught the whole league by storm. But for those of us who remember Dame and a lot of his playoff performances, him and CJ, and the true player archetype of these two guys who are volume shooters, who are pretty much small, don't really play a lot of defense. Some of us have a few questions on how well Dame would actually fit in with the Bucks defensively. And does he leave Giannis to actually do more work? I mean, sometimes as a superstar, you can ask for another trade for another star, but damn, sometimes you signing up to do more work. And I believe Giannis is definitely doing more work. But George Karl spoke on Damian Lillard, and he actually spoke about how the talent level between Dame and CJ is going to be surprisingly different for the Bucks, and it may not actually work as well. You see, there's a huge difference in Dame and Jrue Holiday's name recognition. There's a huge difference in that. When we talk about the talent level, that shit's a lot closer than we think. Let's see what George Karl had to say.
Do you think the Bucks will be better in the regular season? And do you feel like in the postseason they could really miss Holiday's defense?
I agree 100%. I talked to someone last night about, I think Lillard probably makes them more exciting, more explosive. I think he'll go in there with some excitement being on a team that can win the championship. But to be honest with you, in the playoffs, Holiday might be better than Lillard.
And definitely, let's not forget, Jrue Holiday definitely swept Damian Lillard and the Blazers during the playoffs 4-0. Him and AD. And Jrue Holiday was cooking in that series. You guys can go back and look at the highlights yourselves. Jrue Holiday was not only locking him and CJ up, but he was killing CJ and Dame in the offensive end also.
Statistically, that won't prove out. But the intangibles that Holiday brings to the game, that's what wins playoff games. The little things, the defensive ability to move around and cover different players. And I think you got to give Holiday some credit. He became a pretty good offensive player last year.
And he definitely has. The gap between the two is not that far off, especially when you look at Jrue Holiday's intangibles, running through screens, his switchability, willing to, guard different players. Dame doesn't do any of those things. And in the playoffs, those things definitely do matter. And when you look at their rivalry, which is the Boston Celtics, where the Blazers were able to flip Jrue Holiday and send him to the Bucks rival. This is where this trade gets super interesting. I could understand if Jrue Holiday stayed in the West, but the fact that he was sent right back to the East to be the main rival of the Bucks, this is where this trade kind of came back and kind of bit the Bucks in the ass. At first, it looked like a complete win, but then when you found out Jrue Holiday was going to your rival, this is where things kind of took a turn for the worse. It's still a great trade, but the trade went from like a guaranteed win to now this could be 50-50. I mean, Jesus, you just looking at the Celtics backcourt. Oh man, you talking about Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Jrue Holiday? That's gonna be problems for Giannis, man, during the playoffs. Dame is not defending those guys, and all three of those guys together, they could definitely shut Dame down, especially offensively. Dame is really not that efficient. He's not going to get that same green light to chuck up all those shots that he's used to taking. But going back to George Karl, funny thing about him, he's one of these coaches that was active in the NBA between two different eras. And especially when he coached Carmelo Anthony, that was the beginning when the NBA started just off rip, giving young players who had name recognition the keys to the franchise, off rip. And George Karl used to always make a fuss about Melo's defense, his willingness not to learn how to play or just put in the effort on the defensive end was always a major issue. And even back then, he stated at times that the league was definitely going in a different directions where the young star players coming in just off rip were given the keys to the franchise, and they were giving too many perks. They were giving way too many perks. And he's definitely not off when he speaks about the talent gap between Dame and Jrue Holiday, especially in the playoffs. It's definitely not that far off.